back into wholesaling. 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12 did really, really well, 200 to 300 homes a year in the last couple of years. And then we started flipping some multifamily. And I said, wow, this is pretty wild that we could flip a multifamily for 25 to 100K per flip.
Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hey, our sponsor for the show today is Pine Financial Group, the leader in hard money lending in Colorado and Minnesota, and they were recently approved to offer their investment publicly. This investment offer is only for investors in Colorado and Minnesota and is only made through their investment prospectus. Get your copy today. Simply visit www.pineinvestments.com and click to get started. Look, there's a reason why some of the wealthiest people in history invest in loans backed by real estate. Learn more about the risks and returns at www.pineinvestments.com. Hello and welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm the host, Todd Dexheimer, and with me today, I've got Bruce Wuollet with me. Bruce, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic and improving.
Awesome. That's always good. So Bruce is the founder and current owner of Bakerson, growing up in the bakery business in Twin Cities, Minnesota, which is where I'm from. So that's kind of cool, which is not where we met. But Bruce wanted to pay homage to his now late father, hence the name Bakerson. After trying his hands on a few different ventures in Minnesota, Chicago, and Phoenix, he finally found his passion in real estate. He has a proven track record of success through Bakerson's 17 years in business with thousands of individual units bought, repositioned, and sold. Bruce has overseen all aspects of the business, including operations, acquisitions, product leadership, equity fund management, property-specific syndications, legal, finance, and more. His focus is on finding good deals, while his passion is serving the residents by providing them with one of their basic human needs, and that's shelter. Prior to launching Bakerson in 2002, he served on the acquisitions team at a Phoenix-based real estate investment company. And his passion is serving the underserved with a focus on the permanent renter, one who may never own a home and would like to live in one. So with that, Bruce, give our listeners a little bit more. Obviously, you're from Minnesota, you're living in Phoenix. Give our listeners a little bit more about who you are, what your background is, and what you guys are doing today.
Yeah, well, like you said, I grew up in the bakery business in the Twin Cities, the Wuollet Bakeries, and did a little bit of everything there. And I kind of wanted to pursue my own thing, so I took a dive into something completely different, which was executive recruiting or headhunting. And what I learned from that is that business is about relationships, is about establishing relationships with individuals. And so I did that for 4 years, 2 years in Minneapolis, 2 years in Chicago. I got burned out on that and headed to Phoenix and tried my hands. And first thing I did was medical device sales, decided that selling the inanimate object was not as exciting as selling skills and people. Like I did headhunting, so I tried education, did that for a year, drug education. That was short-lived, and then I was introduced to real estate, and through that started out tax lien foreclosures. I was on the acquisition team, and I found the deals, and I realized that the founder of that company was leaving a lot of money on the table. So I said, hey, I can buy those, and so I started buying from him, started buying my own. Rich Dad Poor Dad was kind of the one that launched that. It's the only book of his I really dove into and liked. I don't know if I loved it, but I liked it. It kind of launched my mindset on making money in real estate. Started to buy, fix, and sell. And then in 2003, I was finding more properties than we could possibly fix and sell. So we were introduced to wholesaling, actually the end of 2002, December. And while I was in this training with a friend of mine, Jim Staples, I flipped a property in Phoenix and said, I was in Seattle for the training. I flipped a property, we had an escrow, and I was like, wow, that's pretty neat. And I got addicted to wholesaling, where we would flip them first in escrow. We had an escrow do the double flip, but then after a while, we found out we could do a little bit better if we actually take it down, buy it at auction, clean it up, meet city requirements. get rid of graffiti, board them up if needed, clean the yards, just trash outs. Did that.
So you were
did really
doing more of you weren't doing a full fix and flip. You were just kind of getting them so they weren't quite so bad, maybe cleaning out some of the difficulties that'll scare a lot of people away.
Yeah, it was actually really nice because they would see what it could become then, because they'd walk in and sometimes the drywall was gone. Like if there was a cat problem, you got to get rid of some of the drywall, or vandalism. People were stealing copper back in 2004, 5, and 6. It was just unbelievable, the copper. Sometimes we had to do the same patch 3 times in a week because you'd put it in and the next night somebody would break in and steal the copper in. You just move on, just do your thing, and eventually they go away. PEX is a good thing to put in.
Right, right. It's a great invention. Yeah.
So yeah, that was where I started, but that was not, so then everybody says that, have you had any battle wounds? We certainly did. I got involved in the land play. Square Mile was really getting set on being a big time developer. And then 2007-8 happened and the big time developer balloon was popped. And I said, that cost me a lot of money, cost me a lot of stress. And I said, I'm going to go back to what I know, and went back into wholesaling. 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, did really, really well, 200 to 300 homes a year in the last couple of years. And then started flipping some multifamily. And I said, wow, this is pretty wild that we could flip a multifamily for 25 to, $100K per flip. But I realized that that's still the day I stopped working is the day I quit making money. So I said, let's try syndicating, buying properties, form a syndication, put out a 18-month to 3-year plan. And so we've been doing that now since, it's been about 5.5 years of multifamily, 6 years of multifamily, nearly 1,000 units. I think about 800 units we've completed, repositioned and sold. And we have two buildings in escrow. So the machine continues. One of the buildings in escrow, though, is a hold. It's a 10-year play. It'll be our first 10-year or longer hold. And that's really exciting because now we're going from the first was really short term, days, then it went to months, then it went to 3-year cycle. Now we're looking at a 10-year cycle. And that maturing of us in real estate has been actually quite exciting to experience. I do miss the hype of the turns, but I got to find my hype other ways, by hiking and biking and doing other things to feed the adrenaline.
I hear you there. I mean, I used to do a lot of flips, and when I decided I'm no longer going to be flipping, that was a totally different shift. It's like, I'm so used to doing transactions. I always felt like there's something wrong. Like I'm not doing business like I should be. I was doing 50 plus transactions a year, and all of a sudden I go down to doing like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So, but take me through that kind of that mind shift. Well, you go from wholesaling quick, and you already kind of said, well, you wanted something a little longer term, but then you went to do 18 to 36 months. So longer term, but still short-ish term. And now you've got this property that you're looking at closing here, and you're looking at a 10-year hold. So first of all, why? What do you see in that longer period, and kind of maybe what made you shift your mind into that?
Yeah, that's it was actually about 2 to 3 years ago. There was 3 different things that happened. One is my brother said, hey, we should do some buy and hold. And then my son, who you've also met, Ben, he wanted to do some buy and hold. And it wasn't real exciting, but I was sitting down with another business owner. We were talking on transactional versus annuity. He's in the trades business, and he does high-end remodels for custom home sites, and high-end, the wealthy and the uber wealthy in the Phoenix Metro, Scottsdale, Paradise Valley. And he says that when you had these repeat customers, it became an annuity. One of those customers owns apartment buildings, and they have hundreds of units. And so they do all the individual turns as they upgrade these class A plus apartments. And he says, it became an annuity. And I said, well, tell me more about that. So we visited about what is transactional, what is annuity. And even though we were on a 18 to 36 month, we are fee-based, so everything was transactional, and it has been transactional. But how can you create annuities that pay you even when you're hiking the Grand Canyon like I recently did, or you're on vacation with your family, or you're in the office working? How can you have that machine continue to work? transactional, it ends when you quit doing transactions. Before, when we flipped houses, as soon as we stopped, our business was dead. Well, now we can stop, and we probably have still 2 to 3 years of unloading assets to survive, but then you're out of business. Well, what happens if you have annuities? So that if you stop, the machine continues to work, continues to feed you. So that's where that seed was planted. And I'm kind of late to the party on these things. So it took me a bit for that seed to germinate and grow. And now I'm excited about the buy and hold, which took a long time, 4 years, 5 years of discussions before I finally said, okay, I'm on board with this. And I'm not sure why, but often I get told somebody, I'm just sometimes late to the party.
So that's good that you made that kind of change, or that's where you've gone now. How have you then transitioned your investors? Because right, they're used to one thing, and now you're saying, well, we're going to do this 10-year thing. Are you bringing in investors into the 10-year, and how has that reaction been?
It's been interesting. The ones, I want to go back to when we were flipping houses. When we went to that and we set up our first syndication on multifamily, a number of them said, we're not interested in multifamily. We like houses. And so then we quit contacting them. And then slowly but surely they got on board as they seen us doing our business. It's okay, I like this. We're on board with you guys. Yeah. And so we're having that same reaction now, but there's a few that we've talked to over the years that said they're not interested in the short term. Call us when you have something long term. And so that hasn't been as big of a difficulty as we thought it would have been. The transition's actually been quite smooth. But yeah, you're right. There's a handful of those core investors that are not interested in 10 years. And the conversation's been interesting because they say, well, 10 years is too long. We don't know where the market's going to be in 10 years. And I said, that's true, but we don't know where it is in 3 years either. And just because it's a 10-year plan, we could choose 7 or 12. It doesn't have to be exactly 10. That's a number you put and a date you put on the calendar. But in the end, you manage the cycle and you make good decisions based on that. Is it time to refi, or is it time to sell, or is it time to just let it continue to operate as it sits? You have 3 options at that point: sell, refi, or leave, as it sits. Unless you have a mortgage due, then you have some more stresses that will come to refinance or sell. But it's really the options at that point. And it could be that we buy a property with a 10-year plan and we sell it in 3 years because we're at some kind of a peak, or it's a good opportunity to sell. Something's happened. But the 10-year is a target which is adjustable. Kind
of gives you a longer term outlook, gives you the thing I like about that 10-year, the longer term, is that we don't know what's going to happen. And yeah, we don't know what's going to happen in 10 years, but we also don't know what's going to happen in 18 months from now. It's like, we don't know. So what's nice about the 10 years, we do know that history tells us that real estate always gains value. That doesn't mean it gains value every single day. And in year to year, it doesn't always go up. We have figured that out, that in 2006 to 2008, we saw a pretty substantial drop. But let's look back then from 2006 to today, and we can see that it has still increased in value. So that's the nice thing about that 10-year plan, is we're looking more long-term. We're going, well, we're just looking at the fundamentals of real estate. It's going to go up in value. Rents will go up. We will have an increased amount of equity, no matter what. Now, again, timing, we don't know, but we do know if it's long-term, eventually real estate will be worth more than what it's worth today, whether we're at the peak or not.
Correct.
But
yep.
That's definitely something I like about that longer-term plan. And I've had some of the same problems with investors. It's always that conversation with them. And it's funny how you said, like, eventually they get on board with you. So, hey, let's take a minute to thank our sponsor, Pine Financial Group. Look, you work hard for your money. Is your money working hard for you? Because of inflation, money sitting idle erodes your wealth. Many investors understand that real estate is a great investment, but may not want the effort or the risk that comes with owning their own property. They want to sit back and have payments, hit their bank account each and every month. Stop eroding your wealth and start building it by asking your money to work for you. You should be earning profits while you sleep, an investment backed by real estate. Pine Financial Group, the leader in hard money lending in Colorado and Minnesota, was recently approved to offer their investment publicly. This investment offer is only for investors in Colorado and Minnesota and is only made through the investment prospectus. Get your copy today. Simply visit www.pineinvestments.com and click to get started. There's a reason why some of the wealthiest people in history invest in loans backed by real estate. Learn more about the risks and returns at www.pineinvestments.com. It's www.pineinvestments.com. So let's talk about the kind of your business, and it's progressed obviously. And I know now you've got your son working for you, and I think you've got a couple other people on your team. And so let's talk about the team and how that dynamic has worked, and what have you done to really help build that team and make sure the team is working well together to achieve all the goals. Any kind of maybe top three steps that you're taking to make sure that's working well?
Well, in the building of the team, there's some very important fundamentals. Is that we have to be able to work well together, and we have a pretty unique environment. And over half the people are family, a son and son-in-law, and brother and brother-in-law, and we get along socially. We get along at work. And we have a rule. One of the rules we have is we don't discuss work at home. So if we're visiting with family at home, we do not make business decisions at home because some of the team members aren't there. They're not part of the family, but they're part of our Bakerson family. Just like when we're at work, we don't bring our baggage from home into the work environment. We ask to leave that at home. And if you do have issues at home, family first. The biggest thing that we have is that we developed over the last few years was clarity of vision and where we're going. Our focus being the permanent resident. Is something that everybody enjoys. When we go down and visit with at the properties, we treat every resident with the dignity they deserve. And that's one thing that has been frustrating for me when we got into this business of multifamily, is how many owners do not care at all about the residents. And I'm like, are you kidding? A $700 a month resident in 5 years is a $42,000 customer.
Right.
You shouldn't treat them with disrespect. So that's number one, is you treat people with respect. The other thing is open communications, and what I mean is, if there's an issue, you don't harbor it. You just visit with each other and say, hey, I got this problem. How do I deal with it? And bring it to the table quickly. It's easier for me to bring those up and discuss that and not harbor bad feelings, because some people say, oh, I don't want to approach the boss because he might be mad about something. I say, no, approach me. I might get mad. It depends on what the situation is. I try not to, but all in all, they know that I have a good temperament, that I have I'm very intense. But yet we have a good vision towards creating these communities. And the two biggest things is treating residents with dignity, but also creating communities which are safe, functional, durable, and clean. That's our mission. And it's very simple. We don't need fancy, high-end amenities for these properties. They like a very basic living, and if it's durable, functional, clean, and safe, people like to live there. So that glue has been for us what's really brought us together. And some people I've brought on, and some people have approached me. So it's been an interesting dynamic. Most people on our team have approached me and said, hey, I'm looking for work. Look, I would like to work for you. And so that's been a blessing, and for sure.
Yeah, definitely cool. It's building a culture, I think, is really important when you're trying to build out a team, and making sure people understand kind of your culture, your vision, like you said, your clarity around things. So really good. You already kind of mentioned some mistakes. What's one mistake you can kind of tell us that you really learned from, and so go through the mistake, and then how have you really learned and grown from that mistake?
Well, when I was in that looking at that land development, we bought the property and did with not a lot of knowledge, but we had a big dream. We were going to partner with a golf community next door as a high-end private golf course. Greg Norman was the designer on the new course, and he was going to fly out, and he'd actually done the preliminary, his team preliminary design on the piece of land that we had control. But instead of, the biggest mistake there is we dove in without knowledge of what we were getting into, thinking, hey, we can lock it up. And it was probably a sense of greed, I guess you could say. We could lock this up, create this, and sell it to this guy and make $25 million on our pro forma over a very short period of time. So we thought, hey, this is awesome. We're going to develop this. We didn't know much about development. We knew a little bit. We knew about land prices. But probably the biggest mistakes in that one is we were getting into business with a guy that we never vetted and didn't know what he had going on. and he ended up getting shut down later after the crash because of some things he did, and the investors took over the project. But the biggest thing we did is we bought the properties on contract, seller carryback, and we took deed to the property, where we talked to other developers and they said, always do options. You want to be safe. See, I'll tell you what, I'll pay all your property taxes plus a little bit of extra towards the option. Anything I give you applies to the purchase price that we predetermined. And some of the developers we talked to said the options are much more valuable. So the two things is, we didn't know what we were getting into as a developer. We weren't developers, but we thought we could be. And then we didn't know that we didn't know about these options. But from that, these options is what launched relaunched our wholesale business, where I was able to tie up properties and turn them fast and create these options on individual houses that really helped launch our business, where we were doing, like I said, 200 to 300 houses a year at the peak. And so that's what I learned. But the biggest thing I learned is never give up. Just persevere, push through. If there's a problem, work your way through, communicate with the investors, communicate with the partners, and make sure that it's okay to share bad news. Don't hide it.
Yeah. So did you have investors in that deal?
I did. And
You did.
it's interesting. And we all lost money. And there was some that were, we had borrowed against some of our own properties. So I ended up paying them back on my own. They were like personal guarantees. But the investors that came in as partners, the biggest group, or the biggest investors in that, when the market was turning around, one of them came up to me and said, "Hey, Bruce, what are you guys doing over there?" And I said, "Well, we're, flipping houses, doing this." He says, "Well, how are you funding it?" And I told him. He says, "Well, I'm interested. I can help out." And I thought, here's a guy that lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in a pretty big transaction, was willing. He says, "I know it wasn't your fault. Let's try again." And so he's been investing with us ever since. It's been a really fun journey.
So I really want to kind of hit on this a little bit more, because I think that's important. I mean, you've got something that obviously went wrong, made some mistakes along the way, opportunity, obviously market didn't behave very well, but you were able to get through that and keep on going with your business. You never gave up, as you said. And then you had investors, though, that continued to do business with you. What's it like? Why did they do business with you? What do you think was a key that helped you continue those relationships?
Well, that's part of the mystery, because I did not seek them out. There's three of them that continued to invest with us, and there's only one that I asked one day. I said, why did you come back to us? He said, "Because I knew that wasn't your fault. I know you're good people. That we bet on the same horse you did. It wasn't like it was your own." We did all the research that you did. We did our own. We looked at it and we said, "Yeah, this is something we can do." The market crashed. The guy that owned that country club went out of business. Investors took it over. He says, "These are things that were out of your control." And we went in. We were betting on the same horse. It wasn't like we were betting just on you. We were betting on the whole game. And so they saw that happened. That was not or he saw that it was not our fault that the market shifted. And there's some things we could have done different. But overall, he said that he trusted that we're good people. I've known them my whole life. One of them, but yeah, actually all three of them. I've known two of them my whole life. One of them for probably 18 years. So they weren't like fresh investors that came along with us. Well, they were fresh at the time, I guess. But
yeah. But you
that's probably the biggest thing, is they trusted that even when we persevered through this, they see that, okay, these guys are giving effort. They didn't walk away from anything. They're doing the best they can to make things better. And since then, they've made enough off of their investment to pay that back. I mean, we've done really well with some things we did with them.
And I think something you hit on earlier, well, a couple things. I mean, first of all, you talk about, they see you working hard. They see that you're not just giving up and kind of just saying, whatever, just chalk it up as a loss and be done. You tried to persevere. You guys worked at it. But the other thing you talked earlier, you said you told them the bad news. You communicated with them and you were open about it. And I think that's probably really important in my opinion. Am I right?
Yeah, we've had investors that have told us that, hey, bad news is better than no news. And then we figure out the sooner you can share with us if there's a hiccup or a change in the plans, the sooner we can brace ourselves or even help. There's some investors that have experience in real estate, and they can come in with some advice or some help, or if we got to, who knows what the challenge will be. The good news, since we've switched to the multifamily, we've done 15 individual apartment communities, and each one of those has been successful. Have they always gone exactly as planned? No, you and I know the day you create your business model, it's broken in a sense, but yet all in all, the returns have been double digit at our projections each and every time. So that's why when they've seen that happening, I think some of those have just continued to invest with us. Think, okay, these guys, it was just a blip in their history as well as the market at the time.
Yeah, and that's just it. I think everybody that understands business knows that every business is going to go through some ups and downs throughout. And if you're not, you're probably, first of all, probably not taking the right amount of risks, and you're not really learning. But every business is going to go through ups and downs, and some bigger than others. But it's how you persevere throughout that. That's really important, and how you act and how you communicate. And I really like what you said. Bad news is better than no news. If you're not communicating with your investors, with your partners, with anybody involved, and then bad stuff does happen, you're going to be in a lot worse place than you are if you communicated the whole way, just like you said, so they can brace for it, so they can potentially even help out. So definitely important. Things don't always go exactly as planned, or never go exactly as planned. So, good stuff. What are 3 key factors you think to your company's success right now?
Well, primarily I would say faith, faith, family, and the team. So I have a strong background, a strong belief system in my faith, and then also the family. The family unit is very important. The strong family unit makes work more exciting for everybody, I think, because you see where people bring broken family issues to the workplace. Not that they can't separate them and you can't persevere through that as well, but that's important to me. And and being that we're family business, 5 of us are family. It's very important. And then the team that we've created, I tell people we have 4 individual or 5 family members and 3 adopted. That's the other people that are on the team feel like they're part of the family. In fact, they even mentioned that recently at a meeting that they really enjoy being part of the team. So that's exciting. It makes me feel good. So the biggest thing is faith, and then family, and then work environment. Those 3 things.
Awesome. Goals moving forward. What's the plan for the company? Where are you guys heading? What do you want to create and do?
The near term, right now we have 256 units that we own. So not a big portfolio. 3 buildings. We got 2 buildings in escrow, a total of another 184 in escrow to buy, and then one of the buildings we're selling. So we're still in transition. But my goal is to, as fast as we can, get into 1,000 units under ownership. And that's to buy and hold. 1,000 units in the hold, not to buy, fix, and sell. We're going to do both depending on the opportunity. But then ultimately, I have a personal goal of having 2 separate goals. One is for me personally, how many my wife and I can own together with no debt, no just cash flow to pay all of our bills, so that I don't have to feed off the business for myself. And then to get 10,000 units as a company. That's a goal that we have, and it's a longer term. It'll take a while to get. It'll take many years through the next cycle for sure.
And when you're talking about your wife and you and getting these units free and clear, are you talking about still large multifamily? Are you talking maybe some smaller stuff? What does that look like?
Well, one of the things I'd really like is a smaller boutique. A couple of them, maybe 40 units total, where it's a boutique in a small town in Arizona that's not too far away, that we could self-manage or hire an on-site local person that would help with that. But I have some dreams with taking one product and creating another. And it's, I guess people out there fielding right now looking for some distressed properties that we could turn into, that are currently not run as multifamily, that we could run as multifamily, maybe in Prescott or Wickenburg or Flagstaff or Payson, one of those destination places for visitors. And so if we get that, where you get 40 units, 50 units with no debt, decent cash flow, maybe do some Airbnb as part of it. Some of those type of things would be pretty exciting.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of people that'll tell you, oh, debt, you need debt, or you shouldn't have debt. There's all different reasons for it, and that would be a whole nother podcast episode that we could go into. But I definitely like that idea. I mean, I've got my own portfolio, rental portfolio, and my LTV right now is probably at 35-40%, and I have I have no desire to re-leverage that, and my goal is to have some of that debt free, and I like that idea. So I do like the debt free idea. I know there's some people listening, their ears are probably burning hearing that, but that's just how it
But
is.
I think debt as leverage for a business is fine as long as it's controlled. We're aiming for, on our portfolio hold for the company, roughly 60-65% maximum,
Yeah.
and then pay it down from there. And then, but just for the personal, that's just my own personal goal on myself, that I'd like that, just so there's no headache and no heartache, and bring some more peace, because we've had our ups and downs financially, through this business, and my wife's very gracious putting up with those ups and downs. Some years we travel, some years we haven't. There's been years where it's been pretty tough. A number of years ago, we had to regroup, and she hung by over 28 years, and so it's pretty exciting for me.
Yeah. And definitely. I mean, look, I have high leverage or higher leverage on some of my multifamily as well. And, it depends on really what your strategy is. Your strategy that you're talking about is just having some of these units that you're going to own free and clear, that you're going to be able to, kind of have as your income, and be able to use the rest of the income probably to reinvest in your current, your business that you're trying to truly expand. So it really depends on the goals that you're having and what you can do. And you can have a couple different baskets, really. And that's kind of what you're creating, it sounds like. What's a favorite book that you, business or real estate related, that you've read?
My favorite is Relentless by Tim S. Grover. And he was the personal trainer for Michael Jordan. And it's just a cool story where he came in and explained how he had actually sent a letter to all of the Bulls except Michael Jordan, and then ultimately became his trainer for, I think, 17 years.
Yeah.
There's many points in there that just awesome personal development that I really, really enjoyed. I've read it numerous times in audiobook as well.
Yeah, I've recently listened to an Audible. I really enjoyed the book. Not maybe a ton of real, like, he doesn't break it down to like actionable steps as much, but there's a lot of really good stories and stuff you can take from it if you're listening carefully. So I like that book a lot too. I don't hear anybody saying that book. So
yeah, I'm intuitive by nature, so I like to take tidbits that I hear and figure out how I can apply it in my life.
Yeah.
And so that's why it was a good match. And when I read it, it was at a time where I was looking for some direction. Where am I going? Who am I? Who do I want to be?
Yeah. Cool. So last question, and you might have said some of this stuff already, but last question is, what are your 3 pillars of wealth creation?
Well, faith and family, I can put those together. So the 3 pillars would be faith, family, and then employees would be, having a good team behind you, and then real estate being the machine that would be the pillar for wealth creation. So
cool.
Faith and family I put together in that, and then the employees and real estate. So yeah, I did repeat some of that from earlier.
Perfect. No, I like it. So very last question is, if our listeners want to get in touch with you, want to learn more about your business, your syndication, anything like that, how can they reach out to you and get more information?
Well, the best way is through email, Bruce@Bakerson, BAKERSON.com, Bruce@Bakerson.com. And I haven't given out my phone number, but people don't always take me up on it. But I'll give you my work number, work cell, 520-808-9111. Call me anytime. I'd love to share stories, secrets, or learn from people that want to share their information with me. Either way.
Awesome. Well, Bruce, I definitely appreciate your time, and tons of value we're able to add to our show.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate having the opportunity to be on the show, and it was fun to see you in Chicago, and I look forward to seeing you in the future.
That was a good time. We were both at the IMN in Chicago, and you were actually the leader of the panel, right? The
moderator, yeah.
Moderator, there you go. That I among with the other people were on. So it was pretty fun to meet you, hang out with you and your son, and son-in-law as well. So good time.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, have a great rest of the day.
All right. Thanks. You too, Todd. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Couple things before we go. Again, go on to our Facebook page, Pillars of Wealth. We'd love to have you on there. Go on to iTunes, give us a rating and review, and subscribe to the show. Also, don't forget, reach out to me if you want any help with potentially growing your business, and reach out to John Stiles to help you buy or sell real estate. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. Have a fantastic the rest of the day. And as I say, make every day a Saturday.